Roman Reigns' return to WWE has the potential to reshape the company in a major way, especially considering how long he has been absent and the void that's been left in his wake. For years, Roman has been the centerpiece of WWE programming, holding the Undisputed Universal Championship for over 1,300 days, dominating both Raw and SmackDown, and operating with an aura of invincibility as the Tribal Chief. His last appearance saw him dismantled by Braun Breaker, a calculated moment that WWE used to write him off television and build anticipation for what comes next. Now, with the timing ripe and numerous superstars having emerged or evolved in his absence, there are a multitude of scenarios and storylines that could mark his epic return. Each option has different implications for the roster, the championship scene, and the ongoing narrative surrounding the Bloodline's fractured power. One of the most compelling ways for Roman Reigns to return would be through a surprise attack. WWE has long utilized this technique to create shock moments, and Roman is uniquely positioned to make a dramatic re-entry by targeting someone who has assumed a leadership role in his absence. For instance, if Seth Rollins has taken over the locker room in storyline terms, Roman's return by ambushing him after a main event or cutting off one of his promos would ignite instant heat. This tactic wouldn't require Roman to speak initially. His presence alone would be enough to send a message that the Tribal Chief is back and reclaiming his territory. The element of surprise is critical for a return of this magnitude, as the longer WWE waits, the greater the payoff must be to justify the delay. Another route involves Roman re-entering the WWE landscape through a backstage segment or vignette. Rather than immediately appearing in the ring, the company could build anticipation through cryptic teasers. These could feature subtle nods to his character, shots of the ceremonial necklace, glimpses of Paul Heyman looking nervous, or echoes of Roman's theme music in unexpected segments. This kind of slow burn storytelling has been effective with previous returns, such as Bray Wyatt and The Undertaker, and it fits Roman's aura as a calculating, methodical leader. Letting the crowd stew in uncertainty while dropping visual breadcrumbs would ensure that every moment leading up to his reappearance is soaked in tension and speculation. In terms of storyline logic, Roman Reigns could return by reclaiming leadership of the Bloodline, which has splintered in his absence. With Solo Sikoa trying to assert himself as the new Tribal Chief and introducing new allies like Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu, Roman would have all the motivation in the world to come back and set things right. This conflict over legacy and control of the family dynasty could evolve into a storyline that surpasses even the original Bloodline saga. Roman could frame his return as a righteous mission to purge the family of imposters and usurpers, re-establishing order through dominance and discipline. The family aspect has always been central to Roman's narrative, and using that emotional connection would make his comeback more personal and impactful. If WWE chooses to link Roman's return to a major pay-per-view event, SummerSlam would be the logical choice. The timing lines up with when he's expected to return, and it offers the kind of spotlight needed for a megastar comeback. He could interfere in a high-profile match, such as a title bout involving Cody Rhodes or CM Punk, derailing the contest and positioning himself as the next challenger. This tactic would not only get people talking, but also insert him back into the championship conversation without needing a rematch clause or contrived booking. Given Roman's status, he doesn't need to climb the ladder again. He can walk right into the main event picture and immediately create a wave of intrigue. An emotional return segment could also work wonders. Roman Reigns is no longer just a dominant heel, he's an icon of this era. WWE could opt for a more heartfelt angle, perhaps having him return to save someone from a brutal beatdown or intervene in a match gone awry. This would blur the lines of his character, allowing fans to speculate whether he's coming back as a face or simply using the moment to reclaim momentum. WWE has previously done this with other top stars, like Edge and John Cena, letting their returns carry a wave of nostalgia and emotional resonance. Roman's absence has made even his harshest critics realize how much he added to the product, and that emotional undercurrent could drive a softer, more complex return. A revenge-based comeback could also fuel the fire for Roman's next chapter. After being taken out by Braun Breaker, Roman could target him specifically, setting off a long-term rivalry that puts the spotlight on WWE's future versus its dominant past. The younger star would benefit from being in the same storyline as Reigns, and Roman would have the motivation to seek retribution. The feud could begin subtly, with Roman observing from afar, sending ominous messages or orchestrating backstage assaults. Eventually, the two would meet in a marquee match that signifies a generational clash, possibly culminating at a major event like Survivor Series, or even WrestleMania. Alternatively, Roman's return could coincide with the introduction of a new faction or alliance. He has always been presented as a leader, and perhaps the Bloodline is no longer the vessel for his power. WWE might use this opportunity to evolve his character further, presenting him as a messianic figure who has handpicked elite followers from Raw, NXT, or SmackDown. This would refresh his narrative and open doors for new matchups and rivalries. Such a move would signify that Roman isn't just returning to reclaim what he lost, but to build something greater, an empire that goes beyond family, grounded in loyalty, intimidation, and control. A confrontation with CM Punk could be another avenue for Roman's reintroduction. The two have history, and the current WWE climate is ripe for big money matches. With Punk portraying a version of himself that walks the line between rebel and corporate pawn, Roman could challenge his authenticity and position himself as the real voice of the modern era. A war of words between these two would be explosive, given their verbal skills and personal animosity. A physical altercation could be held off until a premium event, but the promos alone would generate huge ratings and fan investment. If WWE wants to take a more creative route, Roman could return as a changed man. His time away might be explained as a period of reflection and rebirth. He could introduce a darker, more cerebral version of himself, one that isn't driven by titles or recognition, but by the need to reshape WWE in his image. The Tribal Chief persona has already evolved, and this would be the next logical step. A more philosophical, cryptic Roman, perhaps channeling elements of a cult leader or political strategist, would set him apart even further from the rest of the roster. It would give him depth and allow for nuanced storytelling that rewards longtime viewers. Another plausible return scenario revolves around the undisputed WWE Championship. If the title becomes devalued or chaotic in his absence, Roman could come back to restore prestige to the gold he once held with pride. He could critique the current champions for being transitional placeholders, lacking the dominance and consistency he brought to the title. This angle would enable him to return with a purpose that feels noble, but is actually rooted in arrogance and control. Wrestling fans often resonate with villains who believe they are right, and Roman has always walked that line with precision. Roman's return could also come as a response to the betrayal of Paul Heyman. If Heyman has aligned himself with Solo or someone else in the bloodline, Roman could come back purely to seek revenge. The emotional betrayal would add another layer to the story, as Roman and Heyman shared a unique, deeply layered relationship. Their dynamic fueled much of Roman's heel turn, and revisiting that bond, now broken, could give both men a rich narrative playground. Roman's rage would feel justified, and the fans would be torn between cheering for his vengeance and resenting his authoritarian control. If WWE is looking for a ratings boost or major media coverage, Roman could return during a crossover event or international show. WWE has made huge inroads with international markets like Saudi Arabia, the UK, and Australia, and Roman's return at one of these events would not only make headlines, but also give those crowds a moment they'll never forget. These shows often function outside the regular storyline flow, allowing for surprises that don't disrupt ongoing arcs. Roman's presence would elevate the prestige of such an event and re-establish him as the company's biggest draw. Even a return through the Royal Rumble could be impactful. If Roman enters as a surprise participant, especially from a late number, he could decimate the competition and reassert himself in one night. Whether he wins or is eliminated controversially, the Rumble would give him a large platform to declare his intentions. The crowd reaction would be immense, and the ambiguity of his role, face or heel, would create buzz and speculation in the weeks that follow. WWE has a history of using the Rumble to set the tone for WrestleMania season, and Roman's involvement would immediately inject star power into that path. Roman could also reappear through a sit-down interview segment, perhaps with Michael Cole or another respected voice. This approach would humanize him and let him articulate his mindset, goals, and frustrations. Instead of rushing back into physical action, WWE could peel back the layers of his character and let fans understand his transformation during his absence. These interview segments have worked well for others like Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes, and it would add depth to Roman's comeback, making it about more than just dominance. It would be about philosophy, legacy, and unfinished business. Finally, Roman's return could serve as a pivot point for WWE's future direction. With rumors about him retiring or transitioning to Hollywood full-time, WWE could use his comeback as a launchpad for a retirement tour or final championship run. This would allow for meaningful storytelling centered around Roman's legacy and the stars who might take up his mantle. It could lead to one last match at WrestleMania, possibly against Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, or even The Rock, giving Roman the farewell he deserves while passing the torch to the next generation in a manner worthy of his contributions. Given Roman Reigns' stature and the complex web of storylines that continue to evolve in his absence, another imaginative angle for his return could involve a power struggle within WWE management. Roman has long portrayed himself as someone above the rules, someone whose authority transcends the bounds of a simple championship reign. Leveraging this perception, WWE could script a story where he clashes with authority figures, perhaps Adam Pearce, Triple H, or even Nick Aldis, claiming that without him, WWE has descended into chaos. By returning not just as a wrestler, but as someone asserting control over the company's decisions, Roman could transform into a manipulative force working both behind the scenes and inside the ring. This would give him unmatched narrative reach, touching every brand and division while creating endless conflict. A particularly cinematic return might take place outside the traditional wrestling venue. WWE has shown a growing interest in pre-recorded stylized vignettes to promote returns or build mystique around a character. Roman's reappearance could take the form of a short film, something symbolic and grand, reflecting his mythology. This could include shots of a secluded compound, rituals involving the tribal necklace, and scenes implying he's been preparing for war. Such a return would distinguish him from every other superstar in position him as someone whose story doesn't begin and end in the squared circle, but in a mythos of his own making. It would invite fans to decode visuals and speculate on his motives, building anticipation at a fever pitch before he steps back into the arena. In another innovative take, Roman could choose to bypass traditional rivalries and instead announce a new mission to dismantle the foundation of WWE itself. This anarchic turn would see him targeting pillars of the company not just in the ring, but by destabilizing long-standing alliances, attacking champions from all divisions, and even corrupting rising stars into joining his cause. Such an arc would echo a hostile takeover, flipping Roman from self-proclaimed tribal chief to self-appointed destroyer of legacies. His justification could rest on the idea that WWE has become unworthy of his presence, and his role now is to tear it down and rebuild it in his vision. Few characters could pull off this level of extremity with believability, but Roman's gravitas makes it plausible. Each of these potential return scenarios offers WWE a treasure trove of narrative possibilities. Roman Reigns is not just a wrestler, he's an institution. His comeback must feel seismic, not just in spectacle, but in emotional and storytelling weight. Whether it's revenge, redemption, retribution, or rebirth, the way Roman Reigns reemerges will inevitably alter WWE's landscape. His legacy is still being written, and the next chapter may be the most compelling one yet.